Alright guys, so we're back talking about the finals once again. This game has pretty much taken the FPS genre by storm in terms of its numbers on Steam, on YouTube, on Switch. People really do seem to be enjoying this game. But I actually wanted to make this video today and kind of take a look at the future of the finals and talk about the issues that this game needs to fix now if it does want to have a good future for this game. Because I've personally played a lot of different FPS games, from Call of Duty to Overwatch to Destiny to Apex, and what makes a game succeed for a very long time compared to what makes a game fail very quickly really comes down to developer support and the community. Now this game already has a pretty solid community because most of the finals players came from different FPS games like Apex and COD and Overwatch, and I would say that right now this game has a pretty strong and devoted community for it. But the game does have some issues that need to be fixed very soon hopefully, and the community has also been very outspoken on these issues as well. First off guys, now this might be kind of like a controversial one, but for you guys out there who have actually played the finals, you would know that the finals has three classes: a light class, a medium class, and a heavy class. As it stands right now, I would say that the heavy class is by far the most overtuned, somewhat overpowered class out of the three. They have a lot of health, 350 HP, the abilities are very strong, you have like a one-shot RPG, and it is a very strong class. Now the reason I said that this might be a controversial take is because the heavy class is supposed to be strong, right? It's supposed to be a very strong, kind of bulky, tanky class. So it does make sense that these abilities are very strong and the class also has a lot of HP, but I would say right now in its current state, it just kind of seems a bit too strong. I personally think that class balancing in this game needs to be a very focused on aspect of this game, because we only have three classes: a light, a heavy, and a medium. So if one is very strong, it's really gonna tip the scales. Now if I'm being real, there's many solutions to this. The devs can obviously nerf the heavy class, or they could just make the light class and the medium class slightly stronger, but it needs to be a very fine change, a very fine-tuned change, I would say, because you still want to make the heavy class feel strong. It still needs to have a very tanky feel to it, but in some situations guys, it's just kind of impossible to kill a team that only uses heavy and you're playing as a light class. Even if you have the stun gun, even if you have the dash, even if you have all of the abilities in the game, even if you have cloak, it's still going to be very difficult to kill a team full of heavies if you're using a light class or a medium class even. So even though this game is still very early on in its life cycle, the devs still need to pay very close attention to class balancing, because this is something that could really make or break the experience if it isn't done correctly. The second issue guys is server issues / performance issues. Now I'm not sure what happened with the finals between the open beta and now, but the servers have been kind of, I would say, unstable since the full game dropped. Not just the servers, but also the performance of the game feels very weird at random times. Now it really could be because this game is just so successful right now and the devs weren't expecting such a barrage of new players jumping in, or it could just be because the servers right now are just not very good. Who knows? But I've seen some games with huge potential completely crash because the servers just weren't very good. They were very inconsistent, and I really don't want that for the finals, because this game is also a game that needs to have good servers. The movement is very fluid and you need to have a very good connection to really see the full potential of this game. So if that isn't there, the gameplay experience just feels very crazy and it just doesn't feel fun, simply put. So the server instability issues do need to be addressed. Performance issues as well, especially on PC. I think they recently had an update that sort of fixed these issues with NVIDIA GPUs. I'm not completely sure, but I've been experiencing many performance and server issues recently that kind of make the game not feel as fluid and fast-paced because of it. So the devs need to be very transparent on this, because many players would literally just silently stop playing this game if the devs don't provide too much feedback on this, or if they experience too many games that just aren't very stable in terms of connection and performance. Next up we have the matchmaking. Now to be honest, the matchmaking in this game isn't too terrible, but because of the type of game that the finals is, the matchmaking just needs to be even more precise. It's a team-based game. It's heavily based on team play, teamwork, right? Most of the matchmaking issues in this game come because of bad team balancing. So for example, right, if you have two really bad teammates and the enemies are using like triple heavy, using the most overpowered strats and stuff, you're not going to win the game. It's going to be very difficult to win the game if your teammates are bad and enemies are stacked using all of the strats. So the matchmaking in this game honestly needs to be something that's constantly being worked on, constantly tweaked, because it could potentially make or break the game if it's not done correctly. Skill-based matchmaking is a completely different topic. I feel like skill-based matchmaking in this game, if it were implemented, could honestly also break this game, because it's a very competitive game already. and I feel like they need to have a separate ranked playlist, separate tournament mode, specifically just for that. Skill-based matchmaking doesn't need to be in the regular modes, but some sort of team-based matchmaking that kind of balances out the teams needs to be there, I would say. Now, of course, it's a lot easier said than done trying to have, fair matches in pubs without having any skill-based matchmaking in it, so it's going to be a very difficult, balance for the devs to find. So it needs to be something that they work on regularly, and it needs to be constantly tweaked, constantly worked on, I guess, based on player feedback. And since we were talking about modes, this game also definitely needs to have more modes in it, for sure. We currently only have 2 modes in this game, and I think that for a game like the finals, guys, 2 modes might not be enough to keep players engaged for a very long time. The reason why games like Apex and Fortnite and Warzone were able to succeed for so long were because even though it's one mode technically, a battle royale has so many different experiences in that one match that it actually feels like you're playing a different game every single time. The games don't feel the same because the matches are so long and they're so varied. No one match is the same because the game basically changes with every single match. The rings change, the enemies you're playing against change, so it's a lot more varied in terms of interactions. But in this game, because it's a very isolated game mode, you only have 2 modes in this game, it kind of feels the same every single game. And it's fun right now, it's still very fun, it's still a vibe because it's fresh. But I feel like if we only have 2 modes for more than, I would say, 3 or 4 months, I could see players leaving because of that as well. So we need to have a more, varied selection of modes to choose from in this game, I would say, if we want to keep player engagement high. We also need new maps. I think we only have like 3 maps right now in this game, which is kind of crazy, not gonna lie. We need more maps. 3 maps isn't enough. 3 or 4 maps. I would say this game needs to have like 8 maps at least to keep players engaged. So let's hope the devs are looking at this and they actually plan on bringing more maps, as the months progress. But right now, as it stands, the game definitely needs to have a more varied selection of maps. Now, I've also been seeing players talking about this very last issue, and this is controller support as well as console support. Now, the game should feel very similar on controller and console compared to its PC counterpart, right? The game should not feel like a completely different experience because you're playing on PC or mouse and keyboard. It should still feel like you're playing the same game. That isn't the case right now from what I've personally heard and seen you guys comment on my last finals video. For example, controller players definitely need to have auto sprint in this game as soon as possible. It's such an important feature to have in any game like this, especially a game that's so, centered around having good movement. Now, of course, some games will just naturally feel better on mouse and keyboard because of the type of game it is, and that makes sense. But if we could try our very best to get the experiences to feel somewhat similar as best as we could, that's a huge plus. For example, Apex has one of the best balancing, I would say, between mouse and keyboard and controller. It's still a very, very big debate because players, some players say our controllers are too strong, aim assist is too strong or whatever. I've played personally both on mouse and keyboard and controller for many games, and I think Apex kind of has somewhat of a sweet spot. This game, however, does have some work to do, so there still needs to be some work done, in terms of making those experiences as similar as possible. And that's basically all of the issues that I could currently see with this game right now. Leave your comments down below if you have more issues or more things you want to see change with this game or even added into the game. Leave your thoughts down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Till next time.